Once your blocks have been assembled into the 4-patch units, layered with the flannel, and the decorative stitching is complete, you will want to square up your blocks, removing the excess flannel from the outside edge. Mathematically speaking, the block should measure 14.5 inches. However, the decorative stitching may have shrunk your blocks slightly. You will want to square your blocks to the largest possible size. It's important that you make sure that all of your blocks are square and that each of them is the exact same size. In the case of my project, I will be squaring my blocks to 14.25 inches. Included in your kit is a piece of off-white cotton velvet that's to be used as the sashing for your project. Cotton velvet can be pressed with a steam iron, but it will take a bit more care when handling than a regular cotton fabric. All velvets have a nap or a direction to them. A distinct color difference can be seen in a rayon or polyester velvet when you brush your hand across the fabric. This is much less noticeable in the cotton velvet, but I believe you should take care in positioning your sashing strips in a consistent manner for a consistent look. You will need a total of 8 full-width 2.5-inch strips for your project. Before cutting the strips, I take the time to mark one side of the selvage with an X made by a permanent marker. These will be removed when the sashings are cut in place or stitched in place, but it helps me to remember which end is which, where the nap is concerned. It doesn't really matter which side you mark, it's only to keep you oriented in the proper direction. As I subcut the strips into the pieces that I need, I mark the end in the direction of the X with a pin. It's important that you keep all of the pins or markings in the same direction. In my example here, I'm going to be positioning all of the pins at the bottom edge of my block and all of the X's for the long sashings to the far right. On the layout sheet that you've been provided in your kit, mark where you would like all of your sashing pieces to end so that you can keep them oriented in the proper direction. Remember when cutting your short sashing strips to cut them to size to fit your block. If your block was trimmed to 14.25 or 14, you want to shorten the strips to match the size of your block. When adding the velvet to the pieced blocks, use your walking foot or even feed foot if you have one. Set your machine for a heavyweight fabric and pin the layers together, then remove the pins as you stitch. Once all of the rows have been assembled, measure and cut the horizontal sashings to fit. You want to repeat the process with the vertical sashings on the outside edge. You're now ready to add the pieced borders. Those border units should be stitched together in a random order, end to end, into 4 units. These units should also be layered with flannel, embellished, and trimmed to fit the size of your project. When the entire top is assembled, you will need to add the backing, and possibly batting, if so desired. The flannel layer can act as your batting, and batting itself is not necessary, but if you prefer weight, dimension, or additional quilting be added, it's okay to add another layer of batting. Before quilting or tacking the layers together, you're going to want to baste. Traditionally, Crazy Patch quilts had the layers tacked together using embroidery floss or a pearl cotton. The knots from these tacks could be seen on either the front or the back of the quilt, depending on your desired look. You can also use a decorative stitch on your machine to bar tack inside certain areas. If you've added a batting to your quilt, you want to read the directions on the batting to make sure that you're tacking your quilt in sufficient quantity so that the batting doesn't come apart. If you intend to hang your finished project, I suggest that you stitch the layers together as you would a quilt, whether you've selected a batting or not. The amount of quilting will be determined by the batting that you select, but you also need to consider the amount of support needed for your embellishments. You're going to want to tack or quilt the pieces sufficiently to prevent the weight of the embellishments from sagging once the quilt is hung. Finishing the outside edge of your project should be done with a standard quilt binding. Satin would be a lovely choice for a purely decorative piece, although cotton would be a better selection if you intend to use or wash your project on a regular basis. We sincerely hope that you've enjoyed your experience with our Block of the Month program. If you would like additional information on our programs, please sign up for our e-updates on our website at www.thequiltcompany.com.